Hello there, wellness entrepreneur. Welcome back. I just went through my best launch ever, and it wasn't perfect. There was things I botched, and I think that a formal review of this launch could be really inspiring for you because I know some of you are busy with brick and mortar practices or you're wanting to leave your clinic job. You have one-to-ones, maybe you're 100% online and now you want to go to group. And I thought I would share my review and my audit so to inspire you. And also, you can take away from my mistakes for your own learning and know that, I have a busy calendar too. I do see anywhere from 10 to 15 one-to-ones at a time, but during the time of the launch, I had about 15 to 17. Actually, some were transitioning from one-to-one to actually the group, or I have a special offer for renewal for my one-to-ones. But I do have a high load of one-to-ones. I was still able to do all the launch process that I teach in the 100K blueprint. And for my one-to-ones, I was able to do that launch process fully. We took the week after we actually went out of town. So I was able to, and the week before during my launch, when the cart was actually open, my daughter finished her last day of school. And then also, she has a couple good friends who were graduating sixth grade. So I help out with the graduation and all the end of the year stuff. So just to say, if you feel busy, if you feel overwhelmed, just know that a launch process could still fit within your ideal lifestyle. Yes, there is a little bit more pressure sometimes because you have more deadlines and there's things that you need to do. And you might be, for me, I was posting a bit more, definitely wrote a bit more emails. So there is that crunch period with the deadlines, but I planned ahead a lot. And if you take away this to help you, and that's all you get from this episode, it's going to save you so much to help you earn more without having to overwork into the late night hours. And for me, it is planning ahead. And I did a lot of planning ahead. I wrote my emails ahead of time and then sent them off to my VA for her to schedule out. Now, there's been several launches where I did my own scheduling. Now I have a VA to help me, and that did help save me a lot of time. But I wouldn't have been able to hand it off to her. Sometimes in the past, I hadn't been able to hand off emails because I was writing emails as I was going. So planning ahead for this launch has helped me tremendously. And I didn't always used to do that. I'm not a big planner. I have some neuro spiciness as well. And sometimes looking at a calendar and planning ahead causes my brain to freeze, or I don't even know what to do. And so it just became like a skill that I learned, just like anything else in business, where I got better and better at planning. First, starting with just planning a week, and then planning a month, and planning the quarter, and planning the year. And it's not all set in stone for sure. I leave a lot of flexibility and freedom in my schedule, but I can see the big picture and kind of work backwards that way. So then I know when a launch is coming up and I can start to work ahead on assets. So I'm not having to create all the assets like emails, Instagram stories, et cetera, in those 2 weeks when the cart is open. Because for me, that adds too much pressure, especially with life things coming up, because sometimes I don't get all the dates right. Like, for example, it wasn't ideal that my cart was open and my daughter was ending school during that time. Like, I didn't see the calendar line up that way, or that we finished the cart closed and then I realized, oh shoot, we're out of town next week. And so then I had to make sure that new clients coming in, they knew the start date and when some of them received a DM bonus and a roadmap bonus, and when, those were going to be delivered because I was out of town, and when that was starting, and when their new client onboarding call was. So there were certain details within that, yeah, I definitely could have made that better and more clear. But again, I knew that the launch was coming up. I worked ahead, so that was a win. Those were kind of things that I want to improve on for the future. So I'm going to go over more of this launch audit in this episode so you can learn from all of this. But really, in my 10 years of business, this has been one of the best. And I've exceeded my goals. I exceeded my revenue goals. The clients I brought in are amazing. They're really my ideal client. I'm so excited to work with them for the next 6 months. And there were some fails. And I want you to know that a launch can be successful and it for sure does not have to be perfect. So these are the real numbers here. So I set a goal for 100 registered or completely organic. I worked with my coach. She wanted to just try 100% organic launch. In the past, I've done paying workshops, which were anywhere from $7 to $15 for the workshop. And I did use ads to help fill them. And though I did have successful launches there, but for this launch, we wanted to be free. So that was different and be 100% organic. So no ads to the webinar or no retargeting ads for the program afterwards. And I had a goal of 100. And a couple of days before, I was at 108. So I was really happy. I was like, I did it. That's a solid, but it kept climbing. And so it was over 130 that ended up registering. I had a goal of 9 enrollments into the 100K blueprint, the 100K online program. At the end, I ended up with 14. And I closed 2 people purchased live on the webinar, which was great. I had about 30 people show up live. So I'm really happy with those numbers. They're completely the industry average for webinar show up late and conversion. So I'm really happy with those. And then people bought during the remaining people bought during the 2 week period. I did have 1 or 2 people purchase right before the new client onboarding call, but that's fine. So I did go out of town and then I came back and I had 2 people that I was wrapping up on in their purchase. And that's how that worked out. I had many purchase without a consult, which I'm really happy. A few did need consult. I need to work out the exact numbers of that, but I want to say it was 60 to 70% purchased without a consult. And then there were a few that did need a consult. People purchased from emails, people purchased from Instagram or a combination, reading the emails, seeing the Instagram stories, and then also hearing the podcast, all for nurturing and social media posts. And I had many people tell me that they did watch the replay and then purchase. So just know if your show up rate isn't where you want it to be, then you still have a chance for a replay. This wasn't as replay heavy as a one for I have found that my paying workshops, sometimes the amount of replays that my coach calls it a replay heavy launch, where I get the majority of my purchases from replay. It's a different feel. This was free. Those were paid. So I expect more replays on a paying workshop. So this really carried forward as I expected there. I didn't feel overwhelmed with back to back consults. I did have a lot of consults and I learned a lot from them. I used Claude and AI to evaluate each one and then to help me improve for going forward, because I'm still always refining how I deliver my program, refining and watching client results, refining my consults, refining my marketing. I'm always refining all these areas of my business. So I continued that up and it didn't feel overwhelming, even with more consult calls during the open enrollment period. And I just want to remind you, like, I didn't start so like clear with the deadlines. The open cart is this date, bonuses are this date, closed cart is this date. Some of my first launches, like I'd have maybe 7 people join, but it was like launched over a whole entire month because I wasn't as tight. And again, even here, I'll hint to some of the mistakes I made. It wasn't perfect, especially with my dates. For example, on the webinar, I said that DM access was live only on the webinar, but then I missed a couple emails that went out that said the DM access was actually to that Friday, because originally I had the DM access going to the webinar was Tuesday and I had the DM access bonus go to Friday, but I got coached from one of my coaches that was like, you You can't do that. DMs are really for one to one. You really have to limit that. And so and as people were enrolling, I want to make sure that I am able to really deliver on my one-to-ones because they are paying a higher rate and I don't have too many people that I have in my DM inbox, so I can make sure get to everyone. So I did want to put after that coaching, I have a tendency to over deliver. I love over delivering and over giving, but again, if I and this is a lesson for you, if you do too much, then you're not able to fulfill on the promise, and that doesn't make anyone happy, or you end up overworking and having resentment, and that doesn't feel good for anyone. So I definitely wanted to put the limit on that. I didn't really see that momentum I was having that my coach saw for me. So I really appreciate that. The mistake I made is I didn't catch some of the emails because I gave them to my VA and she had scheduled some out. I missed some emails that had those bonus timelines that I didn't change. So there was confusion with that when the bonus was actually ending. And I did gift someone the DM bonus, even though they didn't purchase live, because she did see that and caught it like right away and sent me an email right away. So that I don't like confusing my audience. I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment around that mistake because it was very public, but it's a learning process for me to be more diligent if I do make a change in my bonus to make sure I do change the date everywhere. I also have to be careful with dates. Sometimes I think I have my schedule not memorized and the dates memorized, but I don't. And sometimes I need to let my VA support and help me more in terms of customer service questions and requests, where I think I can just answer someone's question of a client onboarding call, which is very simple, right? Oh, the date and time, and I think I know my schedule and I'm like, "Oh, I'll just answer because I see this instead of sending it over to my VA," but I don't check my calendar and I did send someone the wrong date of the client onboarding call. So that was a big bummer for them because they had really wanted to show up live to that, so I had to make that right for them. So yeah, that is one of my weaknesses. I am such a big picture thinker, visionary, and very like more emotional and feeling. I go with like my gut and the vibe and flow and fluidity. And it's sometimes the details sometimes just get me in the end. And I have to and know that about myself, but I need to really at times, especially when the details are important, like during a launch, I really have to slow myself down and make sure I am catching all those details. So that is my work for the next one. So I feel very aligned and authentic about how I ran through the exact 5 phase client magnetic live launch blueprint. I really did that whole process myself. So I feel really authentic that I am living what I teach my clients in the work. And I did do it organically with no ads. So I feel like I can now, I've done launches, ads, no ads, partly with ads. And I feel like I can, because I've lived and done all that myself and brought success in all those situations, that I can really help clients in all sorts of situations with their own launches as well. And actually, it was really exciting. One of my clients was launching something new. My client, Kim, she's a somatic educator, and she was launching a forest reset in person. She was building a really amazing and unique experience for her clients in Canada where they would attend some somatic classes in the forest, and there was a forest walk, so they have the forest bathing, and she was launching that new offer and classes in a package with a new price point. And so she was launching, and she ended up launching twice, and both of them successfully sold out. So she's really happy. So to have a client actually going through their launch when I'm launching too, that's really fun as well. And she's a new client in the 100K online blueprint. Another area that kind of caught me by surprise is that in the 100K online blueprint, there's a whole module called the Wellness Messaging Triad, where it's really speaking to your clients' struggles in their words. And in my mind, I assumed my ideal clients, one of their main objections would be the price. So I had some of my messaging, or a good percentage of my messaging, speaking to overcoming that objection. But then on the webinar, from the chat and just messages and questions I got in my Instagram DMs and in the emails, I realized that the true objection was the reason why they might be hesitant on the price wasn't so much the price itself, because I actually had many people tell me that it was for all that they get and what they're doing, that it was a very reasonable price. It was more of like they weren't sure the price was worth it, if because they didn't know how, as a physical therapist or a massage therapist, how to go online and what they would actually teach. And if they were licensed within a state, how to go online without risking their license. So if they felt like they couldn't actually do the program because they wouldn't know what they would teach online, or they couldn't do it because they were licensed, then obviously $2,000 is going to feel like a high price point because it's risky, right? Are they even going to be able to do the work in the program and actually have an online program? And so in the future, I'm going to be more aware of that thought process and speak more to it. And in fact, I am bringing a lawyer into the group for a special client only workshop. And this is for one-to-one and clients in the 100K blueprint, with a lawyer speaking to best practices of going online with a license. So, and that will be available as a replay in the program forever now, after we do that in July. And so that's, a big reminder to me, is like, you're not always just speaking to a price objection. You also, when you're selling, whether it be on consult, through emails, through posts, Instagram stories, you name it, you're naming the quiet, unspoken fear your person maybe isn't truly aware of yet, or haven't admitted to themselves yet. And I also might have missed two kinds of buyers in my community, because I made an assumption that they might not be ready right now. And they're the people who are not even working right now. Maybe they've had a new baby, or they're maybe transition, or they want to build a foundation. And I didn't talk to them too much. But actually, some people in those phases were some yeses. There were people with three different certifications going, and they wanted help bringing all the knowledge under one roof into one program. So I have to really be aware for myself on the assumptions of who's ready or who's not ready, and just speak to the different types of avatars who I might have. I'm really proud of the client results. I'm really proud of my clients. Let's just say they've achieved so many results. I've gotten a lot of feedback recently on my testimonials, and I just want to celebrate my clients. And it's a huge win for the programs that I have, that people are able to achieve such great results. And I do have a philosophy that, like, you're either making progress, or I am figuring out what is going on. And I got that from my coach when I started working with her years ago. And I really believed that, and realized that's what I did in the physical therapy and brick and mortar world as well. Is like, I, you know, knew what was going on in the body. And if I didn't right off the bat, I'm going to figure it out and understand what's going on. So you're either seeing progress, or we're troubleshooting to move forward past a plateau. Okay, so the areas I botched, I mentioned, was the bonus had two different deadlines, and I contradicted myself, and that led to confusion. And I overcomplicated the offer for myself, so I have to be aware of the details. Number two, a lot of my confirmation emails for the webinar, or even for clients that purchased the program, it was landing in spam. So clients weren't getting the reminder calls for the onboarding call, or the reminders for the webinar, or confirmation for the webinar. And some of that is not within my control. Some of it is just, what's happening in emails these days. But some of it also, I can go back and try to optimize my email list and make sure that more emails do land in the right inbox. and make sure the deliverability is not so much of a problem, because that can really just help people feel that they made the right decision and have clarity on what their next step is. And it also lightens the load on my customer service emails. And then number three, onboarding call mistake I made by sending them the wrong date. And, that really hits hard because it's the first impression of the program and I fumbled it. And I am making that good, making good on them with them. So I learned my lesson there is that if I am going to answer something in the inbox, to really make sure I check the calendar. And better yet, I shouldn't even be doing tasks that I signed my VA to do. So just let her do her job, right? And the other area that I have on my radar for future, and this wasn't so much of a mistake or anything gone wrong. It's just part of entrepreneurship. The couple weeks right before my open cart, I kind of had a perfect storm of things happening in my business and personal life where I had a lot of expenses coming in. I had two programs that were renewing that I really wanted to be in, and I thought one of the renewals wasn't happening till late fall, October or even November. But my coach changed the renewal timeline so we could get in early, and she has a bonus, and she made it for July. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's extra thousands of dollars that I wasn't expending planning to expend right now." And I have a whole bunch of one-to-one clients renewing, and I didn't know where a lot of them were standing, and I never want to put pressure on them to renew. So I but I couldn't market my one-to-one. Usually I have no problem with that because I'm like, "Oh, I'll just get out there and market one-to-one and take pressure off those renewals so they can make the best decision for them." And I know I'm just going to be able to bring in new one-to-one clients, no problem. But I couldn't market my one-to-one because I was obviously marketing the group, and that, I had to market the webinar and then market the open cart was 2 weeks long. And then I was going out of town for that 1 week. So I couldn't market it there. So I was feeling a little bit of stress, pressure, anxiety, maybe even a flavor of panic about my finances that I hadn't felt in quite a number of years. And it did remind me, first of all, how far I've come in my business, because I used to wake up with that feeling of anxiety and pressure and panic most days in my business when I first started. And I really had not felt it in so long. And that's why I do teach the stress resilience system in the blueprint and for my one-to-ones to help be able to feel. And I did a whole podcast episode on this, like to have the capacity to feel the pressure, the anxiety, and the panic, and still show up in an authentic and aligned way, and not overwork and still enjoy your life. And that's exactly what I did. It was like, I showed up to my coaching, I processed my feelings, I wrote out my plans, what I would do, and my safety net. And I do have savings now, fortunately, compared to years ago. So it wasn't like I was going to be putting myself in a very super vulnerable position if I didn't fill those one-to-ones, but I did want to. So I wrote out a plan and got on board and really processed it through. If the launch didn't work out, right? If the launch worked out, which it did, then it's no problem. And I can take as long as I need to fill the one-to-ones, or maybe I'll have some of those clients renew. In fact, a couple of them did renew during this process anyways. But before all that, I didn't know how things were going to turn out. I mean, it could be that everyone said no for my client renewals. It could be that the launch failed. And I wanted to plan for that kind of worst case scenario, because that's where my nervous system was, right? Because we're wired for survival, and that's where my brain was going, was worst case, and that's what I was feeling. So I decided to make a plan for that, to calm my nervous system so I could still show up to the webinar and do all the selling from a very regulated, calm, grounded place. And that's what I ended up doing. And fortunately, I did get renewals, right? And the launch was a success, so much so it was the biggest launch. So just know, if you do feel anxiety and panic and you don't want to be grippy or convincing or sound slimy and all that, that it is possible to hold space for the feelings that you're experiencing and still show up as a grounded, calm, confident practitioner and unattached to potential clients or clients renewing. And here's the other thing to inspire you is that one, my audience is still small, right? I still have 12,000 followers on Instagram. I'm not growing. I've never still have gone viral. I know I've had reels get 50,000 views, and I go through periods of these waves of having multiples get 25 to 50 or 60,000 views. So, or I think I have one that's close to 100,000 views on Instagram. So mini viral, and on YouTube, 300, 500,000 views. That is more considered viral, but where on YouTube where I have brought in 100 followers overnight, but Instagram, I still, one of my Instagram coach says, your account is in the green. You're very healthy for growth, but it feels like a snail's pace at times. And sometimes it hit plateaus and then one reel will do well and I get followers, or it just comes in waves. And I have clients that surpass me and their followers. I have practitioners that have been reaching out to me with 300,000 followers, 400,000 followers, and asking me for help hitting multiple six figures or more. And so just know that you don't have to have a massive audience to build six figures and multiple six figures. I've done it. I've helped many, many clients do this. Number two, I also didn't have to discount. I did give bonuses and values ads, but I did not discount my program. Even though I was feeling pressure from myself, right, to want to do well in this launch, to make sure I could pay my bills and re sign with my coach, but I didn't do it through a discount. I did it through a bonus stack, and there were bonuses that were super valuable. So I didn't have to undercut my offer. I didn't have to overgive. So just be aware of that for yourself. If you are doing that to try to get people in the door, what could you give as a bonus or a bonus stack or a value add instead? And number three, if you have a thought, I'm not good at sales calls, just know that I'm there too. Some months I do have 100% sales call rate, but I usually find myself in the area of 50 to 80% conversion rate, which, from the industry is well above the industry standard. But one of my coaches teaches 100% close for the appropriate client. And I'm not there yet. And so just know that you can still be improving your consult calls. I did get some no's for now on the consult call, and that's okay too, because I still had my best launch. So just know that you don't have to be perfect in your sales calls to still hit your biggest revenue months. So if this cracked anything open for you, make sure to save this episode, come back to it, take notes, send it to a practitioner friend who needs to hear it, who's buried in certifications, overworking and still not making the money that they want to make or can't break through an income ceiling. Send it to them or leave me a review. I would love a review. I always love reading them. They definitely make my day. And also, I want to remind you, I've been in business for 10 years. My growth has not been overnight. It's not been by accident. It's not been by luck. It's been by me failing and failing and failing and learning and getting coached and getting coached and getting coached and learning and taking a step and taking a step. And again, I do this without overworking. I've done this through some really hard times, through cancer diagnosis, through my brother passing away unexpectedly, being a mom, going through relationship struggles. So life is going to life, and you want a business that you can do in a sustainable way. And that's how I've been in business for 10 years and been profitable for all 10 years. And growing, I would say, if I could look at the numbers, I'm going to tell you off the top of my head, definitely 8 out of the 10 years I've grown year after year. I think there are 2 years where I hit a plateau, but the rest of the years I've grown. And if I look back those to the 2 years where I didn't grow and where I am now, it's totally worth it that I stuck it through, even though I didn't grow in those years. So just stick with it. You're in it for the big picture. Hopefully, like me, the long haul. Okay, so there you have it, my launch review and my launch audit. So you can shorten your own learning curve and learn from my mistakes and learn from my wins so you can replicate those. And celebration time, 10 years in business, moving into this rebrand as we move into July. So that's what I have for you. I would love to hear your thoughts on the rebrand as I begin to leak out some name changes. You'll see the podcast cover art change. You'll see on Instagram and my social media, and even the checkout experience for my clients. I will have a brand new website, brand new URL. If you land on the old one or old Instagram handle, it will redirect you to the new places. So that's okay. I've got you. Menopausal myself, I get it. I have brain memory lapses all the time. So you don't have to remember it. I will help you through this transition, and I would love to hear what you thinking of it, as it's going to be done in phases. Not everything's going to be done by at one time, so you'll see it over the next several weeks. Okay, I'm excited to go through this with you, and here's to another 10 years.